Hi, everybody. We're going to get started. I know they said there was traffic out there, and parking, I know, is always awful. So, but for those of you who got here early, I hate to keep you waiting. So I think we'll get started. We've done a lot of programs this year for the sophomore group, so I hope you were able to see quite a few of them. And we'll always refer back to them if you feel like you don't have enough information. We've been doing this program for as long as I've been here. So I often feel I see parents who have been to a lot of these programs, and I feel like, am I just saying the same thing over and over again? But in the end, the process is so much that the basics of the process have not changed at all. So you do have to listen to me say it over again, I'm afraid. So just to make sure that you understand all the things that'll happen in the next few years. So welcome. I'm Cindy Rivera. I am the chair of the school counseling department. I first want to introduce my group here. Forgive me if I forget their names. Whenever I'm a little nervous, I forget them, but I have been working with them for a long time. First, we have Jane Mitchell, Kelly Tamburino, Lori Keene, Linda McGann, Ann Vernon, Nick Willett, and Susan Lency. Sue Carroll is our extra person, and I don't think she's down here just yet, but she's essential to our department and does a lot of work in the College and Career Center. So today we're here because your kids, and we've told them this, that they're halfway through their high school career, and now we're asking them to shift and start thinking about what's next for them. You'll hear about what we've been doing with them in the classes, but when we say that to them in the classes, they sort of look at us like, what? we have to grow up, and we actually do want that for them. We want them to start to look forward towards next steps. I don't know whether you all will be happy about that or sad about it, but it is the next couple of years is a time of real mixed emotions. But it's time to at least make a plan and get organized so that you're not feeling like you're behind the eight ball as you go into next year, into senior year. So today you'll hear about the steps that we have taken so far this year with your child, and how you and we can partner with your child in the next couple of years. Slide. Okay. So most of our kids go on to four-year colleges. The percentage going to four-year colleges shifts every year slightly, but it's always between 92 and 94% of our student body generally goes on to four-year colleges. But there is many other directions, so we don't want to forget about that. There are students who take a postgraduate year. They're not ready yet to go. They take a gap year because they want to take some time before going on. Some will enter the military or go directly into the workforce. Some will look at vocational or trade schools. So we don't want to forget about those, and certainly two-year schools. We have a number of students who will go on to two-year schools. So we don't want to forget about those, but the process is very similar in a lot of ways in that we have them planning for that in their junior year. A lot of students start off with the thought of going to a four-year school, and then as they begin going through the process, taking testing, shift gears and decide on a different process. But they may go right down to applying to college and not making that decision till senior year. So we offer them all the information that we can to help them make that decision. If you have a child who's interested in going into the military academies, that's also a process that starts in junior year. So those are conversations we want you to very much have with your child's counselor earlier rather than later, that's the direction that you think your child is going, so that we can provide appropriate resources and search with you on all of that. So how many have been through this already with an older child? Okay. 2 older children? More than 2? Okay. All right. Well, you know better than most what this process is like, especially if those of you have gone through having more than one child. It's different for every child. Every child is different, as you know, raising them. They've had their different challenges for you. So the journey will be different for a lot of them. They all have their own timetable. They're all developmentally ready at different stages. I've had kids who freshman year are coming in with spreadsheets and making plans and know every course they're going to take in high school because they already know what they want to do for college. That's only a few. And then on the other hand, I have kids in January of their senior year going, oh, maybe I will go to college, and can we get started? So wherever they are, that's what we meet them right there. We've experienced it all as counselors. I was trying to count up in the car on the way over how many years it was, but it got embarrassing. So I think we're over 100 years experience, adding all of our years together. So we do have that experience. But you do need to remember that for most of them, it's still early in the process. They're still just beginning to think that they may be leaving soon. So it's early. And you have to remember that in doing this, and as you go through the process, the majority of them will change their minds, and change their minds often. What the absolute dream school is right now for them, because they've heard about it for so long and they've worn the sweatshirt since they're babies, may not even make their list in the end. So they thought maybe they wanted to be in the bright lights of New York City, and then they end up where the cows are, out in somewhere. So you just don't know what's going to tick for them. And so I don't want you to ever feel like you're out of step or you're behind in the process, because it's this kind of crazy journey that you're going to go on, and there's no one way to get through it. It's going to be a great adventure over the next couple of years, maybe a roller coaster, but a great ride. But you will see your child start to switch gears. They will become more thoughtful about who they are and where they fit best and where they want to go next. If you take a back seat and allow the process to just sort of unfold, you'll see that as they're starting to even write their applications and their essays, that they're taking ownership of this process, and they're becoming better versions of who they are as you go through it. But you've got to allow it to unfold in whatever pace they have, which can be crazy. So trust in that process. It will work out. We do hope, though, that you will work with us closely and consult with us often. We are well traveled. We talk to college reps often, and we do understand how things are changing in terms of the latest trends and things. Sue Carroll in our College and Career Center has also a wealth of information, as she is a voracious reader of everything that's going on. I hope you all have liked our Facebook page, the College and Career Center Facebook page, or follow her on Twitter. She posts amazing articles that will keep you in the know of what's going on always. So this morning we're going to start with Nick. He'll talk about how we began this spring with your child and getting them to shift towards their future. Then Lori will walk us through what junior year will look like, and additional programs we have lined up, and she'll describe some of the testing options. Linda will talk about how to organize and plan for college visits. Susan will wrap up with what you can do as a parent, and then we'll go into questions and things like that. So if you could save your questions to the end, that'll be best. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, thank you, Cindy. All right. So I'll push this up a little bit. So good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing? Yeah? All right. So, well, first of all, congratulations. Your kids have almost made it through the first 2 years of high school, so that's an accomplishment in itself. So that's something to be very proud of. I'm going to briefly be touching upon the first 2 years and what each of your kids have done for these first 2 years. We, as counselors, have spent some very valuable time with each of your students, and that, of course, started off when they first walked into our high school as a freshman. So the first thing that we did was we sat down with each of your kids and we worked on an academic roadmap. And that was a roadmap to help each student figure out or give them an understanding of what different classes they might be taking for the next 3.5, 4 years. So you all should have received an academic roadmap in the mail. And if you didn't, you can always email your counselor and ask for that information. As a freshman, we also visited their health classes, and we went over what we call the Learning Styles Inventory. Okay, and the Learning Styles Inventory is an inventory that helps each of your students learn what type of learner they are, whether they're auditory, visual, kinesthetic. So I'm curious, did your kids actually share with you their Learning Styles Inventory? I'm seeing a lot of heads shake no. So that's an important piece, which I'm going to talk a little bit later on about Naviance. And that's something that the Learning Styles Inventory will help them as they go through their junior and their senior year, understanding again how they are as a learner. And that will transition to helping them identify the right college for them. So let me bring you up to speed as to where we are now with your 10th graders. The counseling department meets with all the sophomores to begin to plan for their life after high school. We meet with students on 2 occasions to help break down the initial considerations as they start to plan ahead for their futures. Our goal is to try to help get the students more engaged in thinking and reflecting on their post-secondary options. We feel the best starting point for each student is to figure out, who am I as a student? What are my strengths as a student? What might I want to do in the future? And what that means in terms of my future goals. Starting with a self-reflection and gaining an understanding of oneself is the point at which we believe is essential to doing solid research and planning for life after high school. So as you can see up on the screen here is Naviance. Naviance is a tool that we use throughout the 4 years of high school. Naviance is a web-based school counseling program. It's used by many high schools, and this program supports career and college planning. It's a secure and a private program, okay, or database, and it's linked to our counseling department. It's also our way of communicating to colleges. So most of you at this point, or the kids now, are getting to know Naviance more and more as they go along. How many of you are more familiar with Naviance at this point? Okay, all right. So you'll get to know it more and more as you get into your junior and your senior year. We've been using Naviance for many years here. Our parents and our kids really enjoy this program. And each of your kids are going to utilize this the most during their junior and senior year, especially their junior year through the research as they're researching colleges, and then in their senior year when they're starting to apply to their different colleges. So within Naviance, students have recently completed what we call the Do What You Are assessment. This careers interest inventory is similar to the Myers-Briggs assessment. Right? It's actually not similar, it is the Myers-Briggs assessment. How many of you are familiar with the Myers-Briggs assessment? Okay. So as you know, the Myers-Briggs assessment is a great tool, and out in the business world or the other world, people generally pay thousands of dollars to actually take this assessment. And your kids actually get to take this assessment for free, which is a mini version here at our high school. So it's a really nice, useful tool for each of them. Next one, okay. So when they've completed the Do What You Are assessment, as you will see up here on the screen, it will spit out a personality type or a code for each student. And each student will have different codes. So as you can see here on the screen, this individual here has an ENFP, and it also breaks down some of the strengths of each of those. So I'll just use the first one as an example. This person happens to be an extrovert versus an introvert. And below, extroverts prefer to, and it gives you a whole listing. So this is a really valuable tool for each of your kids to go through and see what their code is and help link some of those strengths. All right, based on your strengths and personality, it also will give you your college and career satisfiers. So these are always very important too as we go through our steps, because it will also indicate to the kids some considerations as they start to identify their careers that might make them most satisfied and therefore happy with what they're doing. So as you can see, some of the college satisfiers up there, I can't see very well, are lots of social activities and opportunities to interact for a college satisfier. And then on career satisfiers, you'll see let you work with lots of interesting and creative people. So it gives you a nice list to connect as to what colleges might fit for your child, or what careers might be good satisfiers for them. It's also important to remember that we spend a lot of time at our work. So it's important for your kids to be very happy and try to research something that they're very interested in, because they're going to spend a lot of time doing that, as we all know. If we go, hold on one second, there we go. So also in the Do What You Are, we have identified possible careers based upon results, and this will lead to possible majors, fields of study that they might like to research further in their college research. So again, here up on the screen, this has spit out different careers that might be interesting for your child. Remember, this is a computer-based program, so it's not going to be 100% accurate, but it'll at least give them an idea of some possibilities that might fit with their personality. And we feel at this point, yes, it might be a little early in your children knowing exactly what they want to do, but this is actually a great starting point for them. And it's also a really good talking point for you as parents to sit down with them and go over this and look at it and decide, oh, okay, by the way, these are the different careers that this has spit out for you, and let's talk about those. What interests do you have? The other piece is that this also will help your kids as they get into their junior and your senior year to look at maybe some of the possible electives that we take onto some career pathways. And, you know, if they're interested in economics or psychology, this could be a great tool for them to also look at some of our electives as they go through their junior and their senior year. All right, so let's move on. Okay, so we just met with them. We finished the Do What You Are assessment, and in 2 weeks, we will see your kids in their history classes, where we will delve deeper into the Naviance program. We'll be researching particular jobs. We'll be learning about the knowledge and skills needed for each of those jobs, and then we'll also be learning about wages for each of those jobs and the difference in wages between the West Coast, the South, and the East. And kids typically, I think you guys would agree, kids seem to really enjoy that part the most, of how much they're going to be making as they go into their fields. So, we also, in our second session, will be researching with them different colleges, college locations, size of colleges, and we're going to help them spit out a list of schools that they may have some interest in. This is just the initial start of it, so they can kind of get an idea of how it works, so when they go into their junior year, they'll be a little bit more knowledgeable on it. We will also be going through the college websites, getting a little bit more specific into each college, actually on the Naviance program, so they can go and research what each of their colleges they're looking at, what the strengths are for each of those colleges. So we'll be looking more into that. And students will also be accessing the scattergrams or the scatter plots. And how many of you are familiar with the scattergrams, scatter plots here at our school? Okay. So this is a really neat tool because this will actually help focus the students a little bit more in understanding maybe what is a school that's right for them, that connects with or reaches their GPA. It's important to remember on the scattergrams that this is actually New Canaan High School students' data, okay? So this is not the national data. It's important to remember that you're going to want to look at our information versus the national data. So you might be wondering, I'm talking all about Naviance. Is anybody able to actually get on to Naviance? Have any of you as parents been able to get on? Okay, so, and there's probably some of you that haven't been on. So I would encourage, you can always go to the New Canaan High School website, and you can go to the counseling website and you'll see a little link there called Naviance, and you can go on there. Now, what's important to remember is you should ask your child their username and their password, okay? And that's how you're going to get in and get the most useful information for what you're looking for, because it's going to have on Naviance, it's going to have your child's learning styles inventory, it's going to have their Do What You Are assessment, and then you can see all that information as you go along. So that would be my advice, is to please ask your student for that. So we want our students to use Naviance as a research tool, and it's extremely important to be familiar as we move forward. When families will be able to research options as they go along their junior and their senior year with your child. So I'm now going to turn this over to Lori Keene, and she's going to talk about your junior year and what's upcoming for the junior year. Thank you.
All right, good morning. I can't believe I'm gonna speak about next year when it doesn't even feel like spring yet. So first off, in October, we are going to, your children are all going to take the PSATs on Saturday, October 19th. Definitely write that down. And for those of you who are veteran parents, registration now is a little bit of a different process. They used to do that in person here in school. Now it's an online registration process through Total Registration. And the registration link will open up on September 4th through 13th, but don't worry, we're going to be giving you e-blasts, and this information will be sent to you all next year as well. And we encourage all juniors to take the exam. And it's very important to know that this is just preliminary. Colleges will never see the PSAT scores. It's practice only. There's zero preparation that's needed. Zero preparation, as its purpose is to give a baseline score, to identify their areas of strength, their weakness, and to really pinpoint some areas for development for your students prior to taking the SATs. So, in short, doing a prep course over the summer is of little value. I get that question a lot. The reason being, remember, colleges are never going to see the PSATs. It's just to get that baseline, so we really want that true score. And also, if they do a course over the summer, they're not going to remember what they learned in the summer when it comes down to the actual real test, which usually occurs in the spring. So for a test course, you want to think of it of training for a race. The courses typically run 8 to 10 weeks. You want to do that right up before the first SAT. Just like training for a race, you train, boom, and then it's race day. So that's how I want y'all to think about a prep course. So moving on, in October, the date is still to be determined, but in October, we always host our annual financial aid night. Did anyone attend this fall? Yes, a couple people in the audience, fantastic. For those of you who did not attend, we did film it. Most of our programs are filmed. They can be found on the school counseling website. On the left-hand side, you'll see video presentations, and I really encourage you all to get a head start and to watch the film from this fall. But hopefully you'll all be able to join us as well this coming fall. In addition to our programs, I mentioned that we filmed them all. We also had Ann Fleming Brown from Union College talk about college admissions this past April. Little raise of hands who attended. More hands there. Fabulous. Those of you whose hands did not go up, I encourage you to watch it. She's amazing. She actually puts humor in college admissions, and it's just going to be, she's just a wealth of information, so we encourage you to hop online as well to watch that. Then, moving on to December, we meet with all of our juniors in small groups. We have this opportunity to meet with them to really outline what's up and coming for the second semester. In addition to senior year, we really talk to them in a group, so it's in general, about the college research process. Then January, we have a parent night for you all that we really talk about all the nuts and bolts of the research process, talk about tips for visits. It's a wonderful evening program. We hope that you could all attend as well. After the junior parent night, we then start to set up individual post-high school planning appointments with just you, your child, and your counselor. These are just meetings in just our offices. You'll get a letter in the mail about when this appointment is, and at this meeting, we talk about everything and everything. It's just not for the college bound. We talk about life after high school. We explain the college process. We develop the testing time frame. We develop timetables of getting out and seeing schools. And at this point, just as you heard Cindy talk about this morning, everyone's at a different stage of where they're at with this process. And at this junior appointment, there's no right place to be except for in our office talking about life after high school. Some kids come well prepared. Others come in without even a thought, and that's absolutely okay. We're here to meet you all and partner with you all with whatever phase and stage your son and daughter is at. These are all tailored towards each of your individual students. Just as you heard from Cindy, we talk about PG, GAP, military, heading into trade school, you name it. We are a full-service operation here, which is wonderful. As I mentioned, though, this wonderful appointment, you'll be getting a letter in the mail about the date and time, and they're about a period long, and of course they are during your son and daughter's free period as well. So I know I talked a little bit about developing a testing plan, and I'm asking you all about how many programs you attended, so I apologize. But who attended our How to Create a Testing Plan this February when Summit came to talk to you all? Good amount of hands, fabulous. Once again, for those of you who did not attend, we have it filmed on our website. You could find it. It's over an hour about how to create a testing plan. He gets into such wonderful detail, and I really encourage you all to watch that for sure. Because next year it's very important that you have a plan which will address what tests your son and daughters are planning on taking. Is it SAT? Is it ACT? When to take them? How to best prepare? It's an individual journey. And also, each child has their own path to walk. I really want to encourage you all to don't compare your son and daughter to what other students may be doing. It's an individual process. Everybody has a different plan tailored towards their needs. And by comparing, we tell this to the students as well. It may only add stress, okay? Next slide. Okay. So in terms of the SATs and ACTs, in short, as I said, I'm not going to go into too much detail because we have the wonderful program online. But we recommend that the students take the SAT or ACT 2 times and sometimes 3 times. Typically, the first round is in the spring, and the second round is towards the end of the school year. Sometimes students, if they're only going to do 2, not only, 2 is typical, they could do 1 in the spring and 1 in the fall. Or sometimes 2 in the spring, then they get the 3rd in the fall if needed. That 3rd, I tell all of my families, it's only if needed, because research shows scores go up from the 1st to 2nd, and sometimes just a little from the 2nd to the 3rd. Anything after that, research shows scores aren't going to improve. And what does that ultimately take away if students are taking a bazillion SATs or ACTs? It takes time away from their academics, which is the most important thing in college admissions is the transcripts. So in short, the SATs, usually the first round of the SATs for the students is going to be in March or April. And that's when the in-state SAT is. So usually that's March or April. That date is still to be determined from the state. Then the student's second round will be in May or June, and then a 3rd in the fall if needed. So I just wanted to give you a quick potential testing plan for an SAT student. And as I said, each plan is tailored towards each of your child's needs. This will be discussed individually with your counselor. Any questions, please give us a call, email us. We're already receiving questions. We would rather you ask, get the answer, than be concerned, have misinformation in the community, so we are here for you all as well. And please be reassured that most colleges superscore the SAT, which means they're going to pluck from the highest critical reading and math and give that combined score, okay? And the list of schools that do that for the ACTs grow each year. And we have a really nice handout out for you all at the table that gives you a beautiful breakdown of the differences between ACT and SATs. And your students could also take an online practice test. We usually recommend doing this in the fall, sometimes after the PSATs, to help determine which exam they'll score better on. Research shows kids tend to score about the same on the SATs and ACTs. However, there's a different level of comfort often students find. So by doing a practice test in both of those areas, they're going to find which feels right to them. In addition, many of the local test prep centers will give a diagnostic for free to help figure out what exam will suit your child best. In addition to the SATs and ACTs, some colleges require the SAT subject test. These exams are just 1 hour long in the specific course area. And they're in general, these exams are for your son and daughters if they're in an honors level, AP level of the course. For example, a lot of sophomores may be enrolled if your child's in honors biology. The teacher's already talking to your students about if they should take it, if not. And usually, for example, honors bio, they'll take the test this June, just as the year-long course is wrapping up. And our teachers are wonderful to say, should you take it, should you not? We always, the counselors and the teachers will help you figure that out. But please, in regards of subject exams, it's only the most selective colleges that require them, and they look to see only 2 or 3. So there's plenty of time to get these under their belt if needed, depending on the school's requirement. And pretty much every year, the schools drop subject exams. This number whittles down. Right now, there's less than 10. Probably this fall, it's even going to be a smaller number than what it is this year as well. So as parents, it's your all job to keep them balanced next year. I don't want you getting caught up with this whole standardized test prep. There's also many, many, many schools that are test optional because college, which means students never have to show their testing scores in admissions. College admissions officers are human. They know this is not a snapshot of who your child is. That's why the transcript is most important. So we want them academics number 1. Ask us if you have any questions about the testing plan so we could help this be smooth and not add any stress. And now I'd like to introduce Linda, who is going to talk about upcoming college visits.
Morning, everyone. So I find that at this point, parents are either in one or two categories. They are thinking about, for college visits, they see the romantic, we're getting on the road, we're going to drive all over the country, my kids are going to be happy. Or you have parents who say, what am I going to talk to my child about for 5 years, for 5 hours when they have their headphones on? So I know that a lot of you are thinking, how are we going to get this done? So I would say that many of your students have been on some kind of college campus, maybe through a sporting event, maybe through visiting it with you for your alma mater, maybe an academic, they're in Model UN, they've gone. So this is a good time, we feel as counselors, heading into the summer or early junior year is to begin the process with them. You may be far ahead, they may be lagging behind. So it's just a preliminary, a broader view of college campuses. And I think that if you're vacationing this summer somewhere and the sun is getting too much and you really need a break, it's really good to see a local college. Or if you're driving to DC, let's say, let's stop in Baltimore or something like that. So it's probably a very good opportunity to do that because it's hard as parents particularly if you have other children, to fit all these college visits in with all your working life and your other responsibilities as parents. Okay. I think it's a good opportunity for students to start to think about their interests, what they like, what they dislike, and it also keeps them motivated going into junior year for their grades too. I would say that, and Nick had already talked about Naviance. One of the things that we would recommend before you hit the open road or get on a plane or drive everywhere is to really look at those scattergrams. We want you to have a realistic idea of what types of criteria they're looking for at a college. We want students to stretch themselves and have reach schools and dream schools, but we want it to be realistic. For you to drive all over the country or to take planes somewhere when it's not a realistic school is really not a good use of your resources. So we want that. If you have any questions about that, that's what we're here for. Call us, ask us about that. Okay. So where do you begin? I would say if your child has never been on a college campus, to start local. You could start at UConn, just up the, an hour up the, north here, a public large university in suburbia. The cows, like Cindy was saying, there's lots of cows up there. But there's a wide variety of options there. So if your child is undecided and really would like the big rah-rah of a public university, maybe they want to go to the basketball games, that's some place that you can start. Fairfield University, right down the road. Kids will say, I don't want to go to school in Connecticut, but I really think it's a good way for you to start the process or Quinnipiac, because they're small or medium-sized private universities, and you could see what they have to offer, a liberal arts education, and a lot of pre-professional programs. Trinity College in Hartford or Wesleyan, these are more selective liberal arts school, and they really like to develop a very well-rounded student in the humanities, the arts and sciences, and the natural and physical sciences. Of course, if your student really loves the city, NYU is just a train right away, and that's for someone to really take a look at if the entire city becomes their campus, and is that a comfort level for your student when they're in the city? And if they come back and say, oh, I love the vibe of New York City, then as counselors we can say, well, maybe they would like Boston, maybe they would like Washington, BU, Boston University, or maybe they would like George Washington in Washington, D.C. So in this preliminary round, it's just getting a flavor for what your student would like, and also your comfort level also. It's really hard for you on these visits to not express your opinion, but I think you have to let them lead the way and let them think about it and discuss it with you. If your child has expressed an interest, I would say go on the college's website, and you could do that through Naviance, the link is right there, and register for a tour and an info session. So these can take several hours when you're on a college campus, so I would not plan more than 2 in a day unless you really want to burn out. 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon for a local school. You want to probably formalize these going online and getting tours, and also seeing when they're available. In the summer, they may not have Saturday visits, so you may want to at least take a look and see what's available. And the info sessions will tell you a lot of data about the schools. They may all start to run into each other, but there's a lot of good data that you can get and questions that you can get answered. But importantly, in this early round, when they're walking around the campus, your child is going to get a feel for, I think I can live in this dorm. I really like the feel of this campus. What kind of activities? Will I be able to go to athletic events? This is a very high-spirited school. We have a lot of athletic activities that your kids are used to going to. Do they want something equal or more, or they're not interested at all? They're looking for someplace that doesn't have that. But it's just to get them to understand what they're interested in. If your child is really not on that path to readiness, and there's plenty of them as sophomores that really don't want to do it, this is more mom and dad's idea to drive around to a college campus, I would say then park the car and just wander around the campus just to get a feel for it. I find that it's really difficult to just drive through a campus. You're really not going to get the flavor for it. But if you park, go to admissions. On the outside of admissions, they have a box with a self-guided walking tour and a little card that you fill out that you've been there so you can get credit for it and drop it in a slot. And then just wander around the campus. You want to, of course, eat the food on the college campus. That's a number one for the kids. They have to figure out what the food is like there. So, I think that wherever your child is at this point, do it. Don't push it. But I think you have to get out of the car. Too many kids drive up to a college campus and go, oh, I'm not getting out of the car. You really want to park the car, make a deal with them. Okay, we'll wander through. You don't have to go into the library. I understand that. But we'll go into the campus center and see what's happening. Okay? Have them jot some notes down, even in their phones, because by the time you finish this process senior year, they're not going to remember what they did 2 years ago. So just have them, whatever is easy for them, jot it in their phone, keep some notes about it. They're all going to start to blur together. So you want to make sure that you have some accurate information. And the hope is that as you go through the summer, as they go through the fall, and then we meet for the junior appointments, then the list is becoming more solidified and a little bit more focused, so that by the time you meet with the counselor, they're saying, I like big, large public universities. That's where I want to go. I like Greek life. I really want to join. I like Model UN, so I want to go to a campus where they have Model UN. I'm a horseback rider. Do they have equestrian there? So it's a little bit more focused, so then we can help you, the student, develop the list a little bit more. Okay? But I guess the most important thing is they should be fun. I don't know how much fun they are when I talk to senior parents. You want to try to at least incorporate some lightness to it. Okay? I would like to show you here, as one of our counselors, I think Cindy alluded, we really hit the road. We're very fortunate that we have resources in this town, thank you, that counselors in the spring, we go to college campuses where we feel like we want to strengthen the relationship with colleges, admissions a little bit more, thank them for being lovely to our students, or if we need more information about that. So this is 2050, the last 4 years, we've really spread out over the country, and as we learn more, as Susan and Lindsay and I went to Texas, more and more students are interested in Texas, into going out west, and we want to obviously educate ourselves and educate them, the colleges, about New Canaan High School. So that's where we're at there. So now I'm going to introduce Susan and Lindsay, who's going to talk to you about parents' role.
So I often get the job of wrapping up after you've become completely overwhelmed by what we're talking about. I would say to those of you who are sitting next to somebody who's been through the process before, especially if they've been through it twice, make them your new best friend, right? On those days when you just think, maybe they won't go to college, you really do. My job at the end of all of this, before we let you ask us questions, is to make sure you know that everyone here at New Canaan High School graduates with a plan. And as we've said a number of times, there's a real continuum of readiness here, but we are known for running students down if they aren't really getting to the process at a certain point in time. So whereas if you do that, that may cause big troubles at home. If we do it, they seem to understand why we're doing it. You do have a very important role. There's no question. It's just not the lead role. Cindy alluded in the beginning, this whole process is about independence. It's the ultimate goal of the process. That's post-high school life is all about independence. And if they aren't on that path by the time they finish here, college can be a daunting place in the fall of freshman year. That doesn't mean you say, here, take over the process yourself, because we know that's not how it works. But we want you to keep in mind at all times, and we know you know this, but we just like to reiterate it over and over. You're raising adults, and independence is what a student needs to succeed in life beyond high school. So the job in the next 2 years is to find the right balance between offering them support in the process and unqualified sort of love in the process, that whatever ends up happening for them, you still feel the same about them, right? Even though you might not on certain days. Trust yourselves, because if it feels like it's too much to you, I would suspect it probably is, right? Unless you've been, under a rock these last couple of months, you know what's going on out in the world in terms of college admissions. And if this feels like it's too much or over the top, then it probably is. So some points to reflect on. It is about them. So be sure to be supportive and encouraging without giving too much of advice. And that's very hard to do, really hard to do. All of your students, all your sons and daughters, whether they express it to you or not, have a lot of concerns about leaving home. You know, they may say they can't wait to get out of here, but when push comes to shove, they really do have a lot of concerns about moving away from here and you and their friends. So when you start those college visits, I mean, somebody said along the way, I thought it was funny, you're all gung-ho and excited, and I remember one of my friends saying to me, their son was curled up in the fetal position in the back of the car. They may not feel as excited. They might, some do, but they're the ones who should take the lead. You don't want to be that parent who's taking over the student-led tour. You will hear about it from your student. I guarantee you'll hear about it. If they have questions and they're too shy to speak up on the tour or in the information session, encourage them to go back to admissions after and ask the questions. Admissions officers work with students. They do what we do on the other side of the desk, and they're in the business because they like students. Your primary role probably in this process is going to be sort of a travel guide and also a systems organizer. Isn't that what we called it, Sin? A systems organizer? There are lots of details. Coordinator, even more important. There are lots of details in the process. Booking the tours and visits, which they can go on and do, but you're probably going to need to book the travel accommodations, figure how you're getting there, what hotel, when you have to leave, and all of that sort of stuff. Fun keeps being mentioned, right? And I encourage you to try to be a fun companion on this. It can be a big stretch sometimes. We always used to try to have ice cream at the dairy bars, which every college has. You're going to be so tired of Chick-fil-A and dairy bars and smoothies and coffee shops. But especially if there's a younger sibling along, don't expect too much from them in terms of seeing the college, but do put some fun experiences in there, because otherwise it becomes a daunting trip. I would beware of the grapevine. We live in a town, or you live in a town, where students and parents are really well informed, and that's a good thing. But it can also cause the kids, we've seen this, to stop trusting their feelings and how they feel about it and what they want for themselves. We say to them, there are thousands of colleges in the U.S. and even more overseas, and many more of our students are looking in other countries. So we encourage them and you to look carefully sort of inward rather than outward at what everybody else is doing. I think this one's really important. The candid conversations should take place early. We're encouraging this more and more every year. And by candid conversations, I mean the ones about what our family can afford, right? There's big price differentials in these between in-state schools, out-of-state schools, private schools, public schools, financial aid, and all of the things that go along with that. So we advise addressing those parameters early. Location, right? If you don't want your child going to California, you really should have that conversation early. Often just going to California and getting on a plane and them seeing how far that is changes their minds too. But on the other hand, some students, that's kind of where it's in their DNA to want to go further. So I would discuss those things early. And as Mrs. McGann said, the discussion about reality checks is an important one. Because yes, we do want reach schools on the list. We want reach schools and target schools and favorable schools. But it's painful for a student if you see a lot of reach schools that turn out to be schools they probably won't be able to be admitted to. So that's what we're here for, to look with you on Naviance and make sure you know what those are. This is a process that can overtake your family. You get better at it, I think, by the second or third child. But first children, or the first time you're going through this can consume family conversations. Aunts and uncles and cousins and everybody's interested in it. But you really want to encourage your own child to put up a little bit of boundary around it and say, I just don't think we need to talk about this all of the time. And you can be helpful by also not talking about it all of the time. Somebody said once they used to have a meeting on Sunday and they would talk about it then. In our family, we weren't disciplined enough to really plan that out, but we tried not to have every conversation be around the college process. This is a good time to prepare them in a kind way, of course, that sometimes things don't work out exactly the way we want. Have any of you been spared disappointment in your lives, your adult lives? I mean, do you always get exactly what you want? No, and I think that that's important for them to know. These are young people who are really talented and they're used to a lot of successes, and that doesn't guarantee a spot at a college that you may have had your heart set on. It might, and there are lots of successes like that, but it's okay to be disappointed. And there's always the next option, option B, option C, and often students come back to us the next year and tell us, option D turned out to be like the best place in the world for me. So I don't think that it's too early to start sort of planting that seed too. Because admissions decisions can involve factors way beyond anybody's control, right? I mean, I think these last couple months have been a real bird's eye view into that, but that's not the usual situation. Colleges have institutional imperatives. They need to make up a class made up of students from certain parts of the world, whatever. Our students can do the best they can do, and they still might not have that option to go to that place, but there will be plenty of others. So to take it personal, it feels so personal, but it isn't that personal in some ways. And we just talked about, we travel every year. So we've had a chance to meet a lot of admissions officers, and the College and Career Center has a wonderful program of colleges visiting in the fall of senior year, which we'll tell you about next year. But in closing, before we take you to questions, somebody said it before too, because we're always repeating the same things in this process. This is a precious time for your family, right? We are looking at our seniors now, and they are going to be leaving us in 2 weeks to go on internships, and then they're going to graduate, and they're going to go off in the fall. You have 2 years. You don't want to spend all of it talking about college. You want to help them enjoy the moments of high school life. You want to enjoy them, and we really are very specific and organized in this process, and we know you will be too, but we don't want it to overtake everything that your family is about. It always feels like we're preaching. You know all of this stuff. It's just very easy to get caught up. There's a lot of advice out there. There are a lot of people giving advice. There are all sorts of programs and everything else. So if you just keep your hearts sort of in the right place on this, it'll be a great process.
Okay, so you heard it all. So now we'll just take any questions that you have, clarifications that you need. I'm glad to talk with you about that.
What exactly, in terms of the student, are they able to access? Are they able to access the testing, all the information that we just heard? Are they able to access that as well?
Yes, the question was what's available on Naviance, what can they access, what can they see? Yes, Naviance is a tool that links you to everything, every college website, all the stats that New Canaan students in the past, what their GPA, you won't get student names, but you'll know what GPAs and SAT scores were accepted to certain colleges and what the averages were. And are. Unfortunately, they've taken away the ability for parents to have their own accounts to see all that information. We tried giving parents their own accounts. I think they're working on it, and so hopefully over the summer, that'll be new information. We'll give you your own account so you'll be able to access the data that's there. The problem is you won't see it via your student. So when you're on your student's account, you can see in those scattergrams where they actually fall versus everyone else.
The sophomores right now have an account.
The sophomores have an account, freshmen have an account, yes. But it's going on their account to really access data.
Do I have to press?
Yep.
But recognize that we don't weight grades until the end of the sophomore year. So if you went in there now and you were looking at your child's GPA, there wouldn't be a weighted grade on there. And those scattergrams are weighted GPAs. So just bear that in mind.
Right. You'll get, the sophomores will have an academic weighted GPA following their sophomore year. The weighted GPA will show up at that point. So.
I actually did go on it and I didn't know where anything was. Could you like show it right now real quick?
No, we won't have, the question was, you had trouble finding it. That's you really, yeah, your child has now getting all that direction, and they have another access where we'll show them all the tools, and that will help you to go on with your child to really understand all the different access points. There was a program that Jane and Anne did recently showing all those details around Naviance. So if you want to go back and look at that presentation's available too, so on our website. So over here.
You said the weighted grade for sophomores would be later in the year after they finish the year. When would that be approximately?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
When will the weighted grade for sophomores be posted? July or August?
So the question was, when will you get the weighted grades? It'd be probably July, because the first deal with getting the seniors' final transcripts out, and then they calculate the weighted grades for everybody else.
Process for admission and tuition with regards to UConn versus other New England state universities? Yes.
The cost in tuition, I think UConn at this point is close to $35,000 for in-state students.
I think includes room and board.
That includes room and board, so that's not just tuition. Out-of-state, for our out-of-state universities, 45 to 50,000, I think now for public universities. Most private universities are all over the place, so you really have to do your research on that.
You could go as a Connecticut resident to another New England state university for the same cost of UConn. Is that now?
No, that still exists, where you can get in-state tuition for out-of-state New England universities if they have a major that UConn does not offer. So if you want a certain major, And they'll tell you which other public universities offer that, and you can get in-state tuition then.
My daughter does reading school, and every time I tell somebody where she wants to go, they're like, yeah, I keep dreaming. So, do you guys realistically tell the student if she has the GPA to that school? So if she keeps talking about that school, you guys told her that maybe she can't?
Yeah, we're affectionately referred to as the dream killers. And we aren't. But we will be realistic. I mean, we will, if we look at, if your child's GPA is a 90, and we look at that Naviance scattergram, and we see that the average GPA of a student accepted from New Canaan High School is a 99, we know that's a reach, right? Unless you tell us that there's some other factor that we don't know about. We've heard people say to us, well, you never know. Well, we kind of do know from data. Data is pretty rich in terms of what the kind of student they accept from us. We will never diminish the student when we say that. We will say, well, if you like that, here's some that are more like it that will accept your GPA. But we're not afraid to say to them, and in fact, I think it's important we say it to you right now. We often have kids who, they've gone to 12 campuses, and they tell us the names of the 12 campuses, and they're all schools that are probably going to be beyond their reach. And so there's so many schools that, and we will help them find targets and favorables, but we will be the realists. We always are.
And then sometimes we will never tell a kid, there's no way you should
Right.
apply there.
Right.
We'll always
Never.
encourage the application,
on.
and they'll say no, and then that's the end of that story. So, but you'll pay the $75 to hear that at that point. Sometimes that's all that they'll hear.
We
So-
just want to be sure there aren't 10 schools like that, 15 schools on a list where you're going to get no. I mean, that's demoralizing. However, we've heard people say, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah,
we have
so
s- yeah.
102 GPAs get turned down from schools, and we're not trying to be negative about the process. It is what it is. You know, I mean, there's people from all over the world applying to many of these colleges now. But there are plenty of colleges that take all of our students. I would say, sitting here right now, every student we all have has a place to go next year. Every student we have, and that's students all across the GPA range, right, guys? I mean,
And I would say most of them are very happy with it. So,
And can I just say, if you have a sophomore, there's this semester, 2 semesters of junior year, and if your child is going to go regular decision, another semester of senior year. Not that I'm saying that that's going to boost up that GPA dramatically, but that is something to consider and for them to work toward.
That's my question. How, say for instance, my daughter, she's not undecided like a lot of kids are. Do they have access to the scattergram? Can they go on and take this?
Yes,
assignment?
yes.
And she has an idea.
that's what we're doing with them
I think
this
it's
month.
important right now.
Yeah, that's what we're doing with it. And you'll hear that when we do the sophomore, the second part of the sophomore program in 2 weeks. When we do the second part of sophomore program in 2 weeks, you'll hear gasps. Oh, I didn't know that it took that to get into that. And it's a little bit, we try not to get them to freak out too much because their GPAs aren't weighted yet, but still, it's a good, this is the way it is, and this is life, and, you know, it's not going to hurt them to be a little disappointed.
informed, yes, that's a good point. In the back over there?
Yes, the PG year, is that weighted negative in the college process or application? I saw that the percentage was like 1% of the kids that
Yeah.
choose that route, so I was wondering.
The
if
question
that
was around doing a postgraduate year or a gap year. Actually, colleges love that because they see a student who's taken charge of their life or taken a little more time to be more ready for school. So for them, that's perfectly okay. They totally understand that. And oftentimes when students go to another boarding school, a lot of times it's athletes trying to be more ready for a sport. but other kids do it for academic reasons. And you just see that maturity and growth in a student in that year, and it makes a big difference. And colleges recognize that.
Sorry, there's.
Back to Ms. Lee's question, you kind of answered it. If we have a sophomore now that comes to you and says, that this is my beach school.
Good morning, teachers. This is SVTV. It's that time again. Please join us right now for today's live broadcast.
Oh, it's a live broadcast. They won't do it online. That's good. Go ahead and finish your questions.
Could our students come to you and say, this may be a beach school for me, what can I do, or what classes can I work to help me further along?
And the question was, how do I, I understand it's a reach, how do I get there? And yeah, I think we've partially answered that. But yes, that's the point of the sophomore program, to also say to the kids, if you're expressing an interest in something, in some area of interest, now's the time to readjust maybe what junior and senior year look like. But if their average is significantly off from what the average is, at this point, it's not going to jump that much in the next 2 year and a half. So you still want to be realistic. I always say a reach school may be 3 to 4 points above what their average is now. A target school is approximately what their average is now. And then a backup or a safety school is 3 to 4 points below what their average is now. It's sort of that range of what you're looking at. And, targets, so many of our kids come back, you said that was a target. Well, a target isn't a definite. A target is you may still not get in. And that's where kids, they're like, but I'm exactly the student they're looking for. But that's still a target. Chances, you still have a chance of not getting in. So that's hard to understand.
Second part of my question is, what about, obviously, schools and some kids are applying for sports, but what about, theater is usually hard. No, I was thinking more like, like they want to see that your child donates time to the community, or, do you talk to them about that, or? Sure. What schools may want to see other than just a student, they want to see the whole rounded person as what they do.
Right. For every student, it's not just sports. The question was how for the students not an athlete or what else. And that's what we're really talking to the students about, how to identify who they are as a person, what they do in their life that interests them and that they hopefully want to do at the next level that they're going to continue to pursue. When colleges are looking at your student, they want to know, what are you, even if you don't know what your major is going to be, what have you been interested and happy doing, and why? And what are you bringing to our campus? And, is it service? Is it leadership? Is it music, theater? Whatever it is, what have you done in high school towards that? And who will you be at our college? You don't have to be everything. You don't have to do a sport and do service and find the cure to cancer, but you have to show some direction what's along the way, even if it's not exactly what major. At least an interest. You love you love to write, but you don't know what you want to do with that. At least talk about why you love to write and what did you do with loving to write when you were in high school. So we have to direct these kids towards sort of where their interests are lying and exploring that in the next 2 years, so they could talk about that to colleges.
Are you finding that on some of these applications, so you have the grade point, you have all that going on, maybe you are a good athlete, or just you play athlete, and if you just show that you're consistent and you're a good kid, okay? Aside from that, is there other things that we should be looking at in terms of, like, this woman said, community service?
It's not about what you do, it's what you like. It's what you're interested in. It's not right. No. I feel like you're right. Developing their interest. Go ahead, Laurie.
And I'm hearing a lot of comments of sports. Many of our students are not athletes, even though it seems like they are in this community. What's important to remember is that somehow they're doing something outside of the 7:30 to 2:05, and colleges are looking for commitment, dedication. They're looking for quality, not quantity. So they don't have to be all over the place, volunteer here once and there once. They're going to say, this kid's padding the resume. They're looking for something that makes sense. The students are being authentic, true to themselves, so they could see some type of, I don't want to use the word passion, but commitment, even part-time work. You know, they, as Cindy said, they don't have to solve the world's problems just by doing something. There's a great value of having a part-time job, babysitting. So that key word is quality over quantity.
But also, when you see about solving the world's problems, the colleges want to know what world problem they're going to be thinking about solving.
Right.
In some ways, particularly at the most competitive schools, that they've actually thought about it or talked about it. That's where we're directing them on their thought process. Who are they? Who are they thinking about? So.
Can I ask a question that also related to this? Because everyone talks about those trips that kids should do to South America or to other countries to help for a summer. It's just really important to they look, because like you said, it has to be something systematic, but she's only going to go for one summer. It's not like she's going to go every summer.
Right. And most, the question was about the trips that kids often take in the summer. I think, again, if that is something, a child is who they are and they're doing a lot of it, they're doing it at school, they're going to Stanford, they're going to Norwalk to do some of that kind of interest, they're doing it in the area here, and then maybe they take a trip too. That shows that continuity and that interest. Just a trip isolated, every college in the world says, oh, they come from a wealthy family, that's what they're about, that's all that is, and they move on. So it's important for your child's development and who they are as a person to discover some of these things and understand that about themselves, that's and to do their part in the world in some ways. I totally believe that. But if you're doing it just as something to put on your application to college, it will have no value.
And also following up on that, we're having enormous quantities of emails from colleges who are now having these summer programs that are very expensive. And I just want you to understand this is a money maker for the college, that just spending a week at X school because you think or your child thinks it's going to help in the admissions process, it doesn't. Now, if your child really has an interest in learning more about whatever that subject is, especially if we don't offer it here, then that's wonderful, because that may lead them to, this is why I'm planning to major in. But just to go there because they're saying, I've always wanted to go to Columbia, and Columbia has this great summer program, unfortunately, that means nothing in the undergraduate admissions process, unless it's part of an interest that they have.
Other questions? Thank you all so much. We lost half of you and all that, but it's okay. Take care.